Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday message for February 18th. My talk title this morning is Lent, the time of letting go and opening up. So each year we celebrate a time called Lent prior to Easter Sunday. And this year, Lent began this past Wednesday, February 14th, and ends on with Easter on Sunday, March 31st. I would like to begin by reading from the foreword of Charles Fillmore's book, Keep a True Lent. And the foreword was written by Georgiana Tree West, who founded the Unity Center of Practical Christianity in New York City, actually back in 1936. And she wrote the book Prosperity's 10 Commandments, as well as many articles of practical Christianity for many publications, actually. And this is what she wrote. The Christian world is once again observing the Lenten season, the season of prayer and fasting that precedes the joyous festivity of Easter. It is commonly believed that Lent has to do with the events of the 40 days preceding the resurrection, and this is an erroneous idea. Lent is a church institution, and there is no authorization for it anywhere in the New Testament. The idea, however, has a sound spiritual basis. Moses, Elijah, and Jesus himself set a precedent for it. Each observed a 40-day period of prayer and fasting as a preparation for spiritual work. Moses received the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai at the conclusion of his fast. Elijah talked with God on Mount Horeb at the conclusion of his period of prayer and fasting. Jesus began his great spiritual ministry at the close of his fast in the wilderness. The ancient Hebrew writers made a practice of using numbers to symbolize ideas. 40 in their mind was a foursquare number, suggesting the idea of a foundation of something to follow, an idea of completeness. So the number 40 is frequently used in the scriptures to indicate a completed preparation for something to follow. When we consider Lent as a well-rounded or completed season of retreat from the things of the world, for the cleansing of the mind and the recollection of the things of spirit, it becomes a true season of preparation for the glorious Eastertide, a preparation for the resurrection of the mind from the darkness of its doubts and false beliefs into the light of understanding. Lent, then, is a church institution embodying an exalted idea, the idea of cleansing and disciplining both mind and body for the end of making them more receptive to the Christ ideas. During the time of Lent, then, we must learn to fast from all unworthy thought and feast on the good and the true. To observe Lent according to the Spirit rather than the letter, we must fast from criticism and condemnation and feast on brotherly love. Fast from false beliefs and sickness and weakness and feast on the truth of God's omnipresent, perfect life. Fast from false beliefs and lack and limitation, and feast on the truth of God's bountiful goodwill. Ideas such as these form an excellent basis for the Lenten meditations that help establish perfect spiritual values in heart and mind. To do so, we must learn to obey Paul's exhortation, let us therefore follow after the things which make for peace. Each one of us must be concerned for improving his own life. We must learn to deny our selfish impulses and be obedient to the impulses of brotherly love. When we withdraw our attention, interest, and support from the false and the unworthy, this is true fasting. When we give that same attention, interest, and support to the enduring good, we are feasting on the things of the Spirit. And this is to true prayer. When we have truly fasted in the Christ way, we have increased our ability to respond to God's goodwill. How many times have you wrestled with a problem and been unable to see a way out? Maybe you tried various solutions and none of which came together. Maybe you ranted about the unfairness of a situation or worried whether what you were going through would ever get better. At those times, every option was exhausted, and the only thing left to do was to let go and let God. For me, there is great comfort in turning over the concerns of our hearts to the care and keeping of God. And it makes our struggles more bearable when we trust that there is a power outside of ourselves who is recognizing our best efforts and forgiving us for our worst and making sure we have what we deserve and helping us to get it. But as we grow spiritually, a new awareness dawns within us. We come to understand God as the one presence and one power in the universe. We know ourselves as individuations of the divine, uniquely expressing God's presence and power as only we can. God is principle, the presence that surrounds us, but also the power that's within us. With the understanding, the idea of letting go and letting God takes on a whole new and deeper dimension. Even as we are fully human, we are also fully divine. We can respond to our everyday circumstances from our humanness or from our divinity. Letting go and letting God really means yielding our human efforts, our will and preferences, our struggles and effort to the divine within. And when we do this, we open ourselves to a new world of possibilities and potentials because we have aligned our thinking with divine mind and our feelings with divine love. And we have no idea how wonderful the outcome can be when we understand this distinction. So, surrounding our human efforts to the care and keeping of the divine within actually relieves anger and worry and anxiety. And once we're relaxed, we can then better feel the presence of the divine and the wisdom of inner guidance and intuition. And from there, new opportunities can present themselves. Synchronicities begin happening, and everything that seems so difficult or even impossible actually gets resolved smoothly. There's no better time than the Lenten season to let go of what we're holding on to. And this process of release prepares us for the resurrection we experience on Easter Sunday. But once the releasing is done, once the Christ in you is resurrected, you will go forward in your life with a greater understanding of the power of letting go and letting God. Opening to the fullness of God's source energy with a greater understanding that this act of spiritual surrender, of opening up, it's actually an act of empowerment. It may have been tempting to think of letting go and letting God as giving up and hoping for the best. Instead, it's a supreme act of faith. It's living the awareness that there is life beyond this one, and the situations of our lives are always changing. So understanding this truth gives us clarity and freedom and allowing us to choose how we will meet life. We can learn about this, transformative power from the Easter story. And when we can release anything from our small irritations to our very lives, we are actually trusting that life will always go on. We will survive. Jesus's triumphant overcoming is actually our own. When Jesus cried out in his final breath, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit," he was letting go of his earthly life with the certainty that eternal life was his. That certainly can be ours. Letting go, letting God, opening ourselves up means giving up the struggle. It means acceptance instead of resistance and peacefulness instead of anxiety. It means God is with and within you every day of your life. But how do we do that and do that easily? We're not here to struggle. We're here to relax and release and enjoy peace. So the book, The Way of Mastery, has a great practice you can do to assist in this releasing that is so simple and so easy. And this begins on page 130 of the book, if you happen to have the book, and it's called A Simple Practice. So the book calls for you to sit for 5 minutes every day as the Christ. The Way of Mastery group that I belong to has made the decision to sit for 15 minutes each day, but that doesn't actually matter. The main idea is to sit for at least 5 minutes and ask yourself some questions. What does this feel like? What happens to your body? What happens to your mind? And when you've been doing this for a while, sitting for 5 minutes, abiding as the Christ, remembering the truth of who you are, you begin to ask yourself these simple questions each day. How can I extend my treasure? How can I add to that which I'm storing up in the heavens of my consciousness? And immediately you will begin to get pictures. An old friend who needs a phone call, someone you write a letter to. It could be something as simple as picking up your cat, placing it on your lap, and feeling the joy that comes as you run your hand along its fur. It could be something big and grand, or it may be as simple as turning to your spouse and saying, I appreciate you. Whatever it is, don't let the time, the day end until that action is accomplished or at least set into motion. So the real question is, am I willing to trust the flow from the mind of source to my own as that which empowers me to expend my treasure? And treasure, of course, is anything inside of us that can be extended to the world. Yes, it does mean living unlike the way the world lives. And yes, it does mean going against the grain. And you may seem to redo the need to apply more energy to it at first. But as you get the momentum of your mind to turn in another direction, to shake loose all the beliefs that have settled into your consciousness, it will become easier and easier. In the book, Jesus states, but I can promise you, if you will take up such a path, simply, joyfully, gently, patiently, the end of your journey is certain. The way it is easy and without effort. You can say to yourself, I am already that which I seek. I need only allow it to guide me. While this body lasts, I will allow it to be a communication device that extends the treasure of perfect love, perfect safety, and perfect peace to all who enter my house. And your house, of course, is your field of energy, the expanse of your presence. And toward the end of your 5 minutes, look at yourself from within your mind's eye, as though from the day you began your spiritual journey until now, and you have it's like you've come around a circle. You have journeyed through many influences of energy. You have engaged yourself in relationships with countless others. You've had thousands of visions and dreams and revelations come to your consciousness. You have had umpteen million opportunities to be disturbed and lose your peace. You've been like a sojourner, the prodigal son or daughter who has gone on, out through the realms of human consciousness. And now you see yourself completing the circle. Then he asks us to count the days out for 7 weeks. And in our case, we're going to count out until Easter Sunday on March 31st. Then he goes on to state that each day be seen as a step, a pilgrimage, a completion of the very ancient circle, and that each day be one in which you reaffirm your commitment to releasing everything unlike love in yourself, so that as you come to, in our case, Easter Sunday, you will dedicate yourself being prepared for it. So just to reiterate, the questions to ask yourself at first are, what does this feel like? What's happening in your body? What's happening in your mind? And then when you have been doing this for a while, ask the questions. How can I extend my treasure? How can I add to that which I am storing up in the heaven of my consciousness? And this is just the beginning. Sitting for 5 minutes each day as the Christ is not too much to ask, but you will be surprised at how much your life can change in just sitting as the Christ for that 5 minutes. And remember to bring more happiness and joy into your life each day. And Jesus states in the book, be joyous and celebrate in whatever way you wish, and know that the new age, the new day has dawned. Never again will you ever be able to convince yourself that there is an excuse for believing in anything that is less than an enlightened Christ consciousness. Surrender to this process I have described each day until that day arrives. So, this is the sweet and easy way to build and hold an enlightened Christ consciousness. I encourage everyone to do this for the next 40 days, and 41 if you count today. And I found it ironic when I counted it out to find that this will be a 40-day journey, just as Moses, Elijah, and Jesus did. And look what happened to them after 40 days of fasting and prayer time. So the question is, what's going to be your grand revelation? So I want to thank you all for listening to this talk, and God bless each and every one of you. And may this next 40 days be a journey of introspection and self